Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Erin Katribe, and today we're here to talk about how diseases are transmitted in shelters. We know that infectious disease can absolutely be life-threatening. However, it's not always clear exactly how those diseases are spread. And again, that's what we want to talk about today. First, let's quickly cover some key points and some definitions to make sure that we're all speaking the same language. So first, you'll hear me use the word pathogen. Pathogen is just an umbrella term for any virus, bacteria, fungus, or parasite, any of these things that cause disease. A key point is that the vast majority of these are microscopic. That means we cannot see them with our naked eye. If I have been, unbeknownst to me, contaminated with parvovirus, I've touched a puppy that's shedding parvo. If I look at my hand, I cannot see that parvovirus on my hand, as an example. Incubation period. This is the period of time from when an animal is exposed to an infectious disease to when they start to show clinical symptoms. So this might mean that the incubation period for parvo is the number of days between when healthy puppy gets exposed to a sick puppy, that parvo is transmitted, but that healthy puppy, he's not going to look sick until several days later. And those several days, that's the incubation period. Healthy appearing animals can be contagious. So, for many of our important diseases in shelters, animals can be contagious during that incubation period, meaning they're not yet showing any clinical signs. They look healthy, but in fact, they are contagious. And so, that healthy puppy that contracted parvo, a few days before he starts to show clinical signs, he could potentially be contagious. And so, a healthy appearing animal can potentially be shedding infectious disease and be contagious to other pets. Last thing, some pathogens are really hardy in the environment, meaning they're difficult to get rid of. And parvo is another great example of this one. So if a kennel or a piece of equipment becomes contaminated with parvovirus, unless we take proper steps to disinfect that equipment or that kennel, that equipment can actually be infective for a long period of time. And so we don't even actually need direct contact in between sick pets or between a sick pet and a healthy pet in order for these diseases to be spread. All right, so how are diseases transmitted? So first is going to be direct contact. This one everybody's pretty familiar with. This is sick puppy comes into contact with a healthy puppy, and that healthy puppy gets parvo from that sick one. Droplets. So for some of our respiratory diseases, when an animal sneezes, they can spread their respiratory disease 4 to 6 feet in droplets. And then dogs are really excellent at aerosolizing their pathogens. So when a dog coughs or barks, they can project their respiratory pathogens up to 20 feet or more. Dogs, again, are really great at this. Cats, not so much. Fecal oral. So for any of our gastrointestinal diseases, they are shed in the feces. And when another animal comes into contact with that, usually through their mouth or their nose, their mucous membranes is what we call that. That's how those gastrointestinal diseases are spread. Fomites. So this one we're going to dig into in more detail. So what are fomites? Fomites are objects, usually inanimate, but fomites can also be us that are mechanical vectors for infectious disease. So I potentially touch that parvo puppy, my hand becomes contaminated with parvo, and then I can potentially transmit that virus to another animal. Fomites, common ones that we see in the shelter, can be cleaning equipment, they can be food and water dishes, and by and large, the most important one in shelters, it's us, it's people. I have a couple of pictures here. So in the left-hand picture, you can see this veterinarian. She's wearing gloves, which is great. That's a great way to prevent spread of disease. But she's holding that puppy right next to her face and to her body. And so even though her hands are protected, her face can potentially be a fomite. Second picture, you can see there's a veterinary technician who's also kissing that cat. And don't get me wrong, I love kittens. I love kissing kittens, but do not let your face be a fomite. Do not let your face be what transmits disease in the shelter. It's important to recognize we have all these different mechanisms of transmission, and they are different for different diseases. And it's important to understand the diseases that we're concerned about to better understand the specific mechanisms of transmission. All right, so I'm going to show you a scenario. This was a staged clinic setup. And so you can see in the kennels here, we have a couple of cats. We have the gray tabby and the orange tabby. In our scenario, these cats are out in the shelter, and then we'll have our technician, Megan, who's going to come, and she's transporting cats from one area of the shelter, say maybe that's the stray area, up to the surgery clinic. All right, so we'll play the video, and so you can see, so here's Megan. She comes, opens that kennel door, introduces herself to that cat, some pets, and she's going to go ahead, pick up that kitty, hold her close to her body, and we'll then put that cat in the kennel where it'll go get transported. Now you'll notice Megan's not wearing gloves in this video. And you'll also notice, she held that cat close to her body, which is great for low stress handling for that cat, but maybe not the best idea for germs. Now, what we can't see in this video is those invisible germs. So for example, let's say panleukopenia in this case. Now, what we've done for the simulation is we've actually sprinkled our simulation panleuk virus that glows under a black light onto that orange tabby. And this is what Megan's hand looks like underneath the black light. And this is what the front of Megan's shirt looks like underneath the black light. And so if this were, instead of just black light powder, if this were panleukopenia, her hand and the front of her shirt would have been contaminated with these panleuk germs. Okay, and so then Megan comes and same thing with the gray tabby. She introduces herself, picks up that cat. Again, great for some low stress handling. But maybe not the best for germs, but places that cat in the kennel and then takes that cat away. All right, so you remember the orange tabby contaminated Megan. And so here we have our gray tabby. And just like real panleuk, we can't see the real panleuk with our naked eye. But when we turn on the black light, you can see our gray tabby is contaminated with panleuk. And this is what happens all the time in shelters. We cannot see these germs, and we, unbeknownst to ourselves, become contaminated because even healthy looking animals can be contagious, and we transmit that virus to a healthy animal. And this is exactly how disease spreads. So in this situation, Megan is the fomite. When we were filming these videos, we went into a smaller storage closet in order to use the black light to take these pictures. And so this was actually an accident, but the door handle has a big old thumbprint of pretend panleuk on it. And so this is a situation where this door handle could be a fomite as well. And so you can see that right there. All right, similar scenario. So pretend this is a dog walking through the kennel, and this dog is perhaps shedding some sort of respiratory virus, though not showing signs yet. And so Stephanie introduces herself to this dog, pets this dog in the kennel. But unbeknownst to her, this dog was shedding an infectious disease. And so Steph's hand became contaminated. When she then goes to her next task, which is sweeping and cleaning, same thing here, right? These germs were contaminated that broom handle, right? And so that broom handle is a fomite in that situation. So what do we need to think about in shelters? Any animal that we're interacting with could potentially be contagious, even the ones that look healthy. And anytime we're handling an animal, we need to think about the invisible germs. Anytime I think about my hands, am I going to become contaminated? Or could I have already become contaminated unbeknownst to me? Or maybe somebody else didn't take appropriate precautions and they touched that door handle that I've then touched. Could my hand actually be contaminated? Always ask ourselves, what PPE, what personal protective equipment should we be using? Again, this is both about protecting yourself from becoming contaminated. And if you are contaminated and you don't know it, it's to protect the animal that you're handling. If you want to learn more, I encourage you to check out more shelter medicine videos on our YouTube series. And if you're interested in sample medical protocols, we have a whole library of templates. And so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have disease templates for all of our common shelter diseases here for you to take and tweak for your shelter. As always, if you need help or have questions, reach out to the Best Friends National Shelter Medicine team at sheltermedicine@bestfriends.org. We hope to hear from you soon.